Good afternoon, Daniel Victor from Sips Hydration.
Hey Warren, how you doing today?
Good. I'm hydrating. So not hydrating with Sips, but hydrating with the old school way. You too, right? Okay, good. Good. So first of all, I'm so excited to hear. I looked you up on the web and I see you got a really cool, interesting, unique product. So tell me, how did you get started with this? What does it do? Talk to me.
Yeah, great question to start us off. At Sips Hydration, we have a couple products, but one being the most notable and most unique, I think the one you're referring to being HydroLamp. So HydroLamp is the world's first and the world's only table lamp that actually dispenses water. It always gets a lot of intrigue and questions, and one of yours being, how did I come up with that? Um, I like to joke and tell people that, like most great ideas, it came up on a bar napkin. Only instead of this bar napkin being literally at the bar, it kind of was made when I was hungover the next morning and really needed some water by my bedside table. And I looked at the lamp and I was like, this lamp is useless. I wish this thing was a water dispenser. And wow, lo and behold, did I run with that idea and turned it into something that you see there on our website available today.
Wow. Isn't it necessity is the mother of invention, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I think at first it definitely started. I didn't really think it was a necessity. It started a bit as a comedy bit, a little bit of a joke for me. And I made a meme page of it, kept making jokes, and it started getting followers. And people one day someone suggested to me that it could actually be useful for elderly and disabled people. And that was when I kind of pivoted from it being just a comedy bit in my head to like, oh, maybe I've stumbled across something here. I should put some effort, time, and money into this.
Okay, so that's kind of awesome because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, why can't I just get up and go get a glass of water? Like, what's stopping me from that? So is that your kind of market you go after then? Is more that market of elderly and disabled people?
Yeah, that's certainly where we want to make a splash. That's the area that we see ourselves making the biggest impact. But truth be told, I was the first user of this, of course. I was on a second story bedroom and was having to go up and down the stairs through the middle of the night to go fill up more water. And with that came turning on lights, came the risk of tripping down the stairs. And it was just a burdensome task that I seeked out a way to solve. So really, you're hydrating right now, I'm hydrating right now. 100% of human beings need water. So we do see it as a product for everyone, while we know it might help some of those elderly and disabled persons a little bit more than it helps the general public.
Got you. So if how does this turn from idea to actual product? Talk to me about
Yeah, so it starts with a trip to Goodwill, getting a few different things and putting together a minimum viable product. From there, more ideas build on of, okay, well, I'll need to do this. This won't work. That might work. And then it goes through a bunch of iterations. I think we're on iteration 6 or 7 now. And iteration 6, or maybe it's even iteration 5 is the first one that went to market. But like any product, we're always improving it, always trying to make ways to make it more affordable or higher quality. So yeah, through different 3D printed prototypes is how it kind of came to be into its final, maple wood version that we have right now.
So the 3D printer is a key piece to iterate a product a lot faster than maybe we could do 10 or 20, 15 years ago, right? I didn't
A
think that.
lot faster and a lot cheaper. Yeah, it's and a lot more experimental. We didn't have to commit like some of the molds out there would cost for us to, really be certain that we had ironed out all the kinks. We were able to kind of test things, play around with things and visually see what works and what doesn't.
So what's the ultimate dream for this for the SIPS product?
Yeah, so we want to be the bedside hydration buddy, but really just that all-in-one smart appliance next to your bed. Something that can, of course, give you water, but also can be a charger for your phone, can monitor your sleep habits and intakes, and can feed that information and take that information in with your wearables, whether it's an Oura Ring or whether it's an Apple Watch. We really want to bring smart technology in the form of, hydration technology to one of the places where people find themselves routinely drinking water, being by the bed or by the desk as well.
Cool. Okay, so how do you get you know, you've got this idea, you turn it into a product, then what happens?
Yeah, so we quickly get Chinese ripoff, right? I mean, classic story as old as time itself. So, and we saw that ripoff was selling pretty well. You know, it doesn't have light, but like we could pretty much tell like, okay, this thing is modeled to not step on our patents. Like it's whoever really designed this did a good job of making the design look like ours and but making it not infringe. So, we've taken some notes of what that product does different versus ours, and that's where we've kind of diversified. So we now have the light dispense, the Hydra lamp, of course, but then we also have the system which just has a spout and is really more functional based and has that look. So we're constantly taking in new data, seeing which is selling better, and we're using that to determine our direction and where we want to go with the product, and of course to validate the market, right? I think a big part of it was for us making like, do people really want a lamp that dispenses water? Like, will people take onto this? And kind of weighing that against our system that isn't a lamp, and that is truly just a water dispenser.
Okay, cool. I love the idea of, well, I don't love the idea of the ripoff, to be clear, but I like the idea of actually using some of their experimentation and seeing what resonates with the customers to figure out how you want to iterate your product. That seems super smart.
It took me some time. At first I was punching the air. I was mad. I was upset. How could we be ripped off? And I was stubborn. And it took me a few months to really change my perspective and realize that with any negative, you can turn it into a positive. And we found the positive in that. One more positive being that, again, it helps prove the market. So we're using that data to help find potential new investors and such in the company as well.
Okay, so tell me, because this is great for entrepreneurs to think about this and people that really want to invent specifically. So how do you go about finding investors? What's your path?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different paths. And really, the first thing that we've found that you got to do, at least in our book, when you don't have all the networks, you don't have all the connections in the world, you got to build the book of business. You got to get the sales. You got to make sure that you have something that speaks for itself. There's a phrase in a book out there that I like to reference, which is be so good they can't ignore you. And rather than trying to go and knock down doors of a bunch of different investors, if you focus on making your business so good that the investors can't ignore you, we found that those opportunities are coming to us. So that's the approach we've taken. We've had some of the bigger incubators and startup accelerator programs reach out to us. We actually just announced today that we are going to be on a TV show on Amazon Prime TV in about a month and a half. And we expect that, with that appearance, again, investors will reach out to us. I mean, the producers of that TV show, they reached out to us. So really being so good that you can't be ignored and that people come to you is what we're trying to live by.
That's awesome. So how did you get to that? You still have to hit some sort of critical mass where they actually see you. So how did you get to that point?
Yeah, for us, I think the key piece of it was Kickstarter. That was how we launched our first production run. And Kickstarter is a very visible platform, right? I think a lot of people scour Kickstarter trying to find what the next big this or that is. And for us, that was directly how those producers of that TV show found us. And likely, I don't think I recall exactly, but likely how some of those incubator programs and accelerator programs found us as well. So we had a successful campaign. We put a lot of effort into that. It's a footprint on the internet that shows, hey, $20,000 worth of sales went to this product. And it kind of is a proof in the pudding type of proposition for anyone who thinks about getting involved with you or your company.
That's cool. So you can actually see you have provable revenue and provable demand for the product. How do you scale that up? How do you keep demand and supply in, without sitting on a bunch of product? How do you do that?
Yeah, and we've definitely had times where we're sitting on products and we've found what works for us, and then we try and repeat it, of course, right? So we had a successful influencer campaign, just a single video a couple of months back, which generated about 1.5 million views on every platform. And for us, that helped move products really quickly. And where before we were scattering the board of, we'll try and get some influencers, we'll try and get some ambassadors, we'll try and do not really door to door, but we'll try and do cold calls to companies and businesses. We'll see what works. when you find something that works, that's where you think you got to double down your investment of money and time and really focus on that area. And that's how you keep moving inventory and you keep driving that demand.
That's amazing. Okay, so then how do you figure out as you're starting to grow your business, how do you know when and how to scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something I think we're still learning in, right? Because if you scale too soon, then you're sitting on inventory. And if you wait for it to be clear as day and obvious that it's time for you to scale, you probably should have scaled yesterday. It's probably too late. You're now paying out the wazoo for air shipments from China, or you're trying to find new manufacturers. Like you have to have everything put in place with the future in mind so that you're checking and vetting, okay, is our logistics company able to handle growth when we get there? Is our manufacturers able to handle growth when we get there? And do we have the cash reserves in place to really put the pedal down when it's time to, when the market is indicating that it's time for us to do so?
And you're the CEO, right? You're the owner. You own the company outright. Do you have other partners?
I do have another business partner. So Austin Malm is our CTO, Chief Technology Officer, of course. Him and I have been working on this venture for a little over 2 years. I'm the original founder, and Austin owns 20%. So yeah, him and I have made a great team in this, and yeah, we're continuing to seek out new ways to innovate beyond our current product line, and we're really looking forward to continuing to grow while trying to, of course, maintain as much of the piece of the pie as we can.
Yeah. So finding a partner and then making sure you are aligned on what success looks like is a critical part of any business that's growing. How have you done with that thus far?
We've done well. It's a conversation we've had since the almost what I would call the delusional days, right? Day one of like, well, how are we going to exit this? And it's like, how are we going to exit this? We just have pen to paper right now. But regardless of where you're at, you need to make sure you're aligned because, what if we didn't have that conversation until today? And I was ready to try and license it out to someone else and, head for the hills, but he wanted, to hold on for the long term. So when you find the partner, having that conversation is a crucial part of making sure you actually have found that partner. We had it early and often. We continue to do pulse checks on ourselves every now and then and see, what direction we think this is going in and where we want to make an impact in the market. So that I think it's going well. I think Austin and I are very aligned on what kind of strategy we want and what role we want to play in that world that Sips Hydration is going to help change.
Boy, you really are brilliant on that one. It's a fun thing I ask every business, whether they're just starting or whether they've been doing it for 25 years. It's like, what does it look like when it's finished? And the idea that you started with that, considering we know we are all going to exit our businesses eventually, either vertical or horizontal, right? It's happened 100% of the time thus far. And then being aligned with your partners. In fact, that's one of the things we do with our clients. The first thing we do is like, if it's your partner or it's your spouse, which is your partner, we got to make sure we agree on what success looks like. And so that pacing that and kind of constantly pulse checking. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. Nice work on that.
Yeah. And to add on to it, just one last note is you got to set ambitious goals, right? Like, that ambitious goal is the exit for us. Or if it's a partner, right? Like you don't start dating a new partner because you don't have an ambitious goal of getting married, whatever that looks like to you, right? You don't start something new because you have a goal that's mediocre, right? You really want to continue to set something worth trying to achieve for. And that's why myself and Austin, day one, we were talking about, well, how are we going to exit this thing when we do become, not if we do become, but when we do become where we want it to be. So it's that ambitious goal that plays into it as well.
Yeah, so you don't just start dating somebody thinking, well, they're okay, they'll be for a while, right?
Right.
Aspirationally, that's going to be the person you want to potentially spend the rest of your life with. So they better be great. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Right. You don't start a business saying, well, I'd like for it to like not go bankrupt. I'd be happy with some happy customers and 5-star reviews. Like, no, you start a company because you truly believe whatever your target audience is that you're going to go out there and you're going to capture it. Not just woo a couple of them, you're going to capture it. And that's where we were aligned in our business partnership as well.
Man, that's so great. But the sad thing is that I've met so many businesses that are like, I'm like, what are your goals? And they say, well, we just want to be on like payroll. I'm thinking, well, if your goal is to just make payroll, then you're just going to make payroll.
Right.
We got to think bigger and longer term. And what does it look like? What does real success look like? Because the business is just a means to achieve your lifestyle and, help the world. It's not the end all be all. It's not who you are, right?
Yep, exactly. And it's easy for an entrepreneur to sometimes let those two blend together and kind of forget that it's not who they are, and your personal life suddenly becomes a bit married to your business, and 40-hour weeks become 60-hour weeks. So it's always a fun game to play of like remembering like that is what you just said, Warren. You outlined it perfectly. It's a means to an end. It's a way to help encourage and influence your day-to-day life, not be it as a whole.
Yeah, that's so good. So how do you go from I don't know, what did you do before this to what you're doing now? How do you transition, say, all right, I'm all in on this idea?
Yeah, I mean, so I was an engineer by trade, and then a product manager, so it kind of fit pretty hand in hand, career-wise, to lend a hand to what I wanted to do with this startup world. Both Austin and me, and Austin was an engineer as well. Both Austin and I had startups before this, so we had tested the waters, and we had smaller scale type of endeavors, and we had had success in those. So we had known, like, okay, like this is what it feels like to have your own money on the line. This is what it feels like to know that you have to work to make this happen and dig out of that hole. And like, not only is that what it looks like on the smaller scale, but this is something we like doing. And like, while it's scary, it also comes with some of the most fruitious victories and fulfilling types of, feelings that you can get. So I think it comes with, of course, having that professional training, and then also having that passion of what you want to do with your profession that will allow you to kind of take that leap.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so then what has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, that is my favorite. I mean, we have a book, Austin and I do. We haven't written the book. We have a list of things that we are going to turn into a book one day,
Hmm.
as does every entrepreneur, of all the different challenges that we have faced and overcome to get to where we are. I'd say like the one I really it seems small, but it's one that I constantly refer to is right before our Kickstarter campaign um, launched, we had gotten like kind of blocked by Meta, right? So suddenly we can't advertise on, and it was like a misstep by them, and we're having to call their call centers. And suddenly all of our ad campaigns sort of promoting our set in stone launch date are come to a standstill, they come to a halt, and we have no real means of, I mean, that was our most fruitious way of advertising. And suddenly we have to try and pivot, we have to block, we have to try and see what we can do differently. It's things like that. I mean, even just a week ago, I'll tell you, Warren, this was funny. A few pallets got delivered to my residence instead of my warehouse. And suddenly I'm having to rush over there. And not even my residence, but accidentally a street over at my neighbor's. There's
Oh,
three
no.
pallets of products sitting in front of their house. And I'm having to shovel it into my truck, apologize, make it move. And if it's not one thing, it's another. And while there thankfully hasn't been any catastrophic single events I can point to, there is a series of unfortunate events that have occurred that make things just laughable now, but certainly a few gray hairs more at the time.
How do you keep how do you keep that mindset right? Because that's got to be hard sometimes, doesn't it? I think that's got to be one of the hardest things as a business owner is to keep your head right so that you can overcome these challenges.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart being a startup owner. The way we do it is by celebrating our wins, making sure we take time to celebrate ourselves. Have a drink of non-water, a little bit of alcohol, something to really take a step back, pause, and make sure that that is a milestone to us, not just okay, that was great. Now we want more, more, more. Because sometimes the wins come frequently, sometimes they're far and in between, and no matter what, if you don't take the second to pause and relish in them, it's going to feel like it was just another day. And then it's going to start to wear on you. So that's the one way I'd say we do. That's one practice that we do to try and make sure that we stay sane amongst some of the pitfalls that occur with any company.
So you got, what's the next big milestone that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely the airing of that TV show
Hmm.
on Amazon Prime TV. So the show's called Buy It Now. You know, we get about 15 minutes of airtime. We compete against other companies for 20 grand. You know, there's some big celebrities on the show. So,
Oh,
you know, that show will air a few weeks before Black Friday. So we're really just
okay.
yeah, those are our two next milestones, of course. You know, we're e-commerce driven right now, while we want to get into the B2B world. E-commerce drives 100% of our sales at the moment. So being on an Amazon Prime TV show will help encourage that. And of course, you know, being any e-commerce business will tell you that, you know, Q4 has a dramatic spike. So we're looking forward to some of the holiday sales events, and we think our product really caters well to perfect gifts for the parents or the family.
And I know that you have to now and have already anticipated what that distribution, the product demand, like those. I have a friend that was on Shark Tank, and that was the same thing. You got to plan for when that show airs. There's going to be a certain amount of, hopefully, a certain amount of orders that are going to come out of that. And so, how do you project that?
Yeah, so it's trickier with a new show like ours. You know, we're season one, right? Shark Tank at least has case studies. I talked earlier about data and how we're always taking in new data, whether it be from our competitors or whatnot. So we look at the Shark Tank case study for sure. And then we kind of dumb it down a little bit. You know, it's not Shark Tank's well and established, and certainly
Yep.
while we hope that that would be the ceiling, you know, it goes into that whole moving inventory conversation we had earlier. So
Mhm.
that's a bit how we project it. We make sure we have everything in place to keep getting pre-orders if we are to sell out. You know, hopefully it's a balance between hopefully we do sell out, hopefully we don't sell out. We're trying to get that perfect, you know what I mean? Trying to get the bullseye of how much inventory to get. But I will say similarly, you know, my strategy is similar to the phrase, if you're on time, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And similar, if you're hosting a dinner party and you have the perfect amount of food, you did not have enough food at the dinner party. So we're trying to be right on with our inventory numbers and then some. You know, definitely don't want to sell out. So
Wow, those are great analogies. I love that. Okay, so if you had to start from square one in your business, what is one thing you would have done differently?
yeah, you know, I think it's the way I proved out the market. So, you know, we got the provisional patent, which allowed us to feel comfortable in getting the word out there, getting a few sample videos out there, seeing what the public thought, and then taking that input and applying it to the product. But, you know, our product specifically being something so eye-catching and shock value as a water dispensing lamp, you know, some of those little feelers we put out there got a lot more attention than I would have expected.
Hmm.
And maybe I should have sat on it a little longer and done a little more private case studies versus opening it up to the entire public. And maybe that would have led to us not getting that early Chinese ripoff, and us having a little more of a beat to the market over that company. So that'd be one thing I would have done different. I'm sure there's a long list if I were to go back, and it's a great question, Warren. But that would be one thing I would do different. I'm sure if I were to go back and look at everything, there's probably a second and third thing somewhere in there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I appreciate your honesty. That's a rough one because there again, it's a matter of time, you know, excitement and time. How many times do you iterate before you get it? Because you're not going to nail it perfectly. You got to get some sort of product feedback from the marketplace too, right? So that's a really tough balance.
Yeah, certainly.
Do you have some employees, I assume, or you will have?
Yeah, so we have contractors right now who help us with some of the fulfillment, some of the packaging, and then we have a small team of myself, Austin, and then another team member, and we've had variations of team members who are committed to the vision and believe in the sweat equity that comes with it, or the commission on sales that'll come with it. So yeah, we are building out our team, and we're always looking for more talented and motivated individuals to help hop on board.
So you named some of the things that you really look for in an employee, like, you know, they've got to believe in your vision, especially as a startup. They're
Mhm.
willing to put in sweat equity in the time because they see that their return is going to, you know, potential for return is greater. What else do you look for when you're thinking about hiring?
Yeah, so we've talked about the stress. I'm trying to think of a different answer that isn't the cliche of wear multiple hats. Yeah, you already knew
Yeah.
where I was going with it. So,
Yeah.
we talked about the which obviously is a certain part of it, but I'm sure
Yeah.
your listeners would they'll puke if they hear that phrase from another entrepreneur again. So I'm gonna pretend I didn't say it. We really look for people to who are stress adverse, right? Being in a startup's a stressful scenario, situation. It requires flexibility, and it's inevitable that there's going to be some wins and losses, right? And like with anything in life, you need to take that loss and not get discouraged. Put your head down and keep moving. So I'd say that's a real important attribute that we look for in a teammate is someone who's okay from loss, as long as they learn from it and try and avoid it again. That's that kind of grit is exactly one of our favorite attributes to look for in a potential new teammate.
Yeah, I love it. So being okay with change and having a positive attitude are ways to get over that kind of those humps of disappointment and the roller coaster of especially of a new startup business going zigging and zagging and having to be kind of uh, what's the word? Flexible, I guess is a good word. Agile, right?
Agile, yeah. Yeah,
Nimble.
negativity is a poison for sure, and you don't want to let it spread within the team. So, yeah.
Negativity is like a cancer that is and when you see I always do it, it's like you got the iceberg and on the top of the water, if you're seeing in your team some of this negativity below the water, it's 3 or 4 or 5 times as bad. It's the stuff that you don't see, especially as your teams grow bigger. So how do you decide who you're going to hire first then?
Yeah, so I mean, looking for startup experience is a huge part of it, right? People who have weathered the storm and they understand what they're getting into. Of course, you really got to trust your judgment in people. And some people don't like being judgmental of others, but hiring, it's very important. You get a bit of a weird feeling about someone, especially in this virtual world, right? Where you're not going to get to shake everyone's hand in person. Some of the people you're going to work with might be hours away. You really got to make sure you're trying to read in between the lines and judge every part of them and see if you can crystal ball a prediction on if they'll be a good fit or not. So of course that startup experience and then really trying to, we look for character as much as a proving point as, some of the resume bullet points that are on there.
I love it. Yeah. You got to use your gut. You got to use your spidey senses and you got to pay attention to the little things. Cause if the little thing is, do you agree that on the interview day, that's the best that they're ever going to be? Sort of like if you're dating a potential spouse, you're not going to make them any better. That's the best they're ever going to be is during the courtship. Yes.
Yep. Well said. I like how we're going back to that analogy. It's so fitting, it's and I hadn't even really put two and two together until you just said it, but the interview is the best that anyone's going to be. They're trying to put on their absolute A game performance. And if you think that's the best and you're not satisfied with that, then, hiring is not a fun process and it's a timely process, but rehiring is an even more timely process. Having to work with someone for a month or two, figuring out, oh, this didn't work out. Now we just wasted a couple months in training them and we got to go back to the drawing board. So yeah, looking at everything with a fine tooth comb and judging if, what their A game looks like in that interview as being their A game and seeing if that's good enough for you.
I love it. Okay. 2 more questions and I'll let you get back to your day. Number one, what is one good piece of advice you have for somebody that's considering doing, and you've given a ton of great advice already, but you have one other nugget that you would share if somebody wants to go take your path that would be really useful?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say the phrase that comes to mind is look before you leap, no brash decisions, evaluate, read, try, retry again, take small steps closer to the edge. Like I was talking about earlier, starting off with a Goodwill MVP and then, doing small types of incremental investments of the 3D printer and getting that rolled out, looking before you leap and taking those small steps before you dive headfirst into anything is an imperative step because once you jump, there's no going back. You're in it now. So I'd say look before you leap is a crucial piece of advice I would give to any aspiring entrepreneur.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, and then the last one, give me your SIPS product pitch. Why do I need to buy your product?
Yeah, that's a great question, Warren. So our current products are the only products on the market that help you store, filter, refrigerate, and dispense water by your bed or by your desk. You don't have to miss a minute of that meeting to go run to the fridge to get any more water. You can actually encourage and influence your hydration schedule by having that water readily available for you. And you never have to settle for stale water again. So no more drinking a little bit of last night's water if you wake up with dry mouth, right? Now you're always going to get a fresh glass of water with every pour, and you only have to fill it up however long it takes you to drink a gallon, which for most people, if it's by your desk, maybe you want to set an aggressive goal every day or two, you have to refill it. But if you're like me and you just need a little bit of water when you wake up with dry mouth in the middle of the night from time to time, well, now you don't have to bring a glass of water with you to bed every night just in case. You can fill it up once a week, once every other week, whatever works for you. So I really think SIPS hydration products are here to help you hydrate better. And yeah, definitely keep an eye on us if you're listening for some of the new and exciting improvements and innovations that we'll have coming down the line in the future.
SYPS, SIPS, sipshydration.com. What is it? SIPS. Tell me again.
Yeah, SYPShydration.com.
Okay, that's awesome. I'll tell you, I literally 2 nights in a row knocked my glass of water over by my bed. So I apparently am going to have to get one of these things pretty quickly.
Yep, I've been there a million times. People, the cat owners of the world have been crying for something to solve that solution because their cats are always knocking over glasses. It solves so many different weird problems that you might not realize you have at first. But once you find out there's a solution out there, all of a sudden it starts to become more and more apparent.
Daniel, this was a great story. I love your journey from meme to viable product that people actually need. That's wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed your wisdom in our conversation. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, likewise, Warren. Thanks for having me on to talk a little bit about it today.
Awesome.